Good morning to everyone. Happy to see so many of you here. It's okay, a couple of more people still joining in here, but it's already 10 o'clock, so I think we can begin. Before we start, Simon, do you want to shortly introduce yourself?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. My name is Simon Wallen. I am CEO for the VAT business in the Nordics. And I'm very excited to be here today and talk about our integration and the work we do together with Bezala and involving helping you with VAT reclaims. That's the short intro.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know me, my name is Fredrik Thier. I work as a CEO for Bezala, and yeah, let's dig into it then. So I'm sharing my slides now, and let's start with just a short update from Bezala. Then we'll go through, jump into Simon's slides, and then we'll look at some tips and tricks with VAT handling within Bezala. The first message that I'd just like to convey is that we've like a big thanks to all of our clients for last year. We had a very good year with approximately 50% growth last year, and we added a bunch of new countries as well, and we have a lot of other new countries coming up soon. So I'm excited about that. So if you do have companies in other countries that where you are interested in using Bezala, please be in contact, and we'll gladly help you on that side. A couple of like product updates. We last year had a total of 50 releases, or a little bit more than that. So quite a lot of new features were added last year. But just in the last couple of months, and this is like December and January basically, these are the main features that we've added. So in the mileage form, you can now users can now use their current location when inserting mileage requests. We've also added a new address field to the profile. Next, we're going to use this address field in the mileage form as well, so that the user's home address will always be sort of suggested for when the user opens up the mileage form. We've also introduced a period lock feature, which means that we'll lock periods, basically like when your period is locked in accounting, it'll be locked in Bezala as well. So users cannot insert per diems or mileages to that locked period anymore. And if they insert receipts, then they will be moved to an open period. Then we've also improved our budgeting feature a little bit recently, and if you're not yet using that, please also be in contact if you're interested. And then we've also been working on improving the batches view, which is basically like a pay slip for the users. So now the users can see how much tax has been deducted from them in the transactions that they've handled in Bezala, and they can see basically exactly what payments have come to their account from this batches view. Then we've also released recently a feature to enforce cost centers. So if you guys have a certain like dimensions, be they cost centers or projects, you can now enforce them directly within the app, meaning that your users cannot submit the claims until they've actually filled them in. And another really big news that we've been working on for a long time is this ISO 27001 certification that we finally received just a couple of weeks ago. So we're very happy for that, finally being certified on that side. And a couple of sneak peeks into what we're developing currently. First of all, we're using approximately 600,000 euros in development or investing this year approximately this much in the product. So you can expect to see quite a lot of new nice features coming up. What we'll be focusing on in the next month or two is there's a lot of usability improvements. As mentioned, we'll also be improving the mileage form. So hopefully we'll be able to soon release a feature where we'll save the recent addresses for the users. So they will be, they won't have to type them in. They can just select from a list of recent addresses. Then we've also been working on the emissions calculations. So basically, at least for the mileage form, we're going to start with showing the actual emissions directly on the form. So the user themselves can see how much emissions have come from their mileage. Then we're also working on a cool feature for trip summary. Meaning that you can combine your expenses into sort of one trip, and this will make creating like multiple expenses within one trip a lot easier. So I'm excited about being able to release that. Then we're also currently working on French and the Polish per diems, and soon we'll also be releasing Lithuanian per diems. So if you have companies in these countries, please be in contact if you wish to use them. On to today's topic then, VAT management in Bezala. So to start off with, as mentioned, Simon will go through the foreign VAT reclaim, how that works. Then I'm going to go and share some domestic VAT tips and tricks with you, and then we'll also look at some reverse charge VAT prerequisites, and I'll show an example of a couple of bad receipts as well. And then we'll also look at how you can automate the VAT codes within Bezala. So we have a very nice webinar coming up, and I hope you enjoy it. Simon, on to you then.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Let's speak a little bit about VAT reclaims. Maybe VAT isn't the most fun topic. Maybe it's not what you want to spend your Friday morning thinking about, or any morning for that sake. Or maybe you are here because you love VAT. I'm here because it pays the bills and I help companies get back some VAT, and that's usually quite fun. But I thought if we just go to the next slide, let's start off by playing a little bit of a game. I don't know if the participants, everyone that's listening, can answer, but here's one receipt from South Korea, and only with my limited knowledge of South Korean or Korean and Google Translate, I was able to understand what this was. So the question is this something that if you have uploaded to Bezala, would you be able to claim this back from the South Korean tax office? Well, I know what you're sitting there at home thinking, but yes, this is a totally claimable expense. But as you can understand, it's quite complicated to figure this out. Let's go to the next slide. We have another example. Here, at least, I mean, maybe we have someone that is a fluent Korean speaker in the crowd, but at least on this page, without speaking Spanish, we can kind of figure out what it is. We can see it's in euros, and we maybe can figure out where the VAT rate is. We can see that it says somewhere around 7%. But the question is here, how would you know when you're doing your foreign VAT reclaims if this, first of all, if this country you can claim from? Well, we know that most European countries we can claim from, especially as European domiciled businesses. But the question is, would we be able to reclaim the VAT on this brownie and these tapas and this glass of wine? Well, that is really the question, and that's the thing that becomes so difficult when it comes to VAT reclaim. But the answer also, again, yes, we can claim. And then just to go to the last slide, where we have an example of this extremely interactive game is, where I'm based, Sweden, moms. Maybe the easiest example, because we probably can read it, we can figure it out. But then the question is, could a Finnish company reclaim back the petrol? What type of trips can they do that from? I think what I'm trying to get to, if we just go to the next slide, is this is quite difficult. And we know that at Finnish business, or wherever you are, but let's assume that everyone here is from a Finnish business, you can claim back VAT from many European countries. Caveat, we also help reclaim from countries outside of the European Union, and not just meaning Switzerland and Norway, but we're talking about Singapore, South Korea, Australia. That's why we had that example of South Korea in the beginning. But the real question is, what type of cost can you reclaim? If you go on business to Sweden, can you reclaim the restaurant bill? Can you reclaim the alcohol? Can you pay for a massage for the client? Can you have a bottle of wine during the conference? What I'm trying to get to is, like, this is complicated, and you need to know exactly what you can claim and what you can't claim. It's of course possible to send in an application to the Swedish tax office or whatever tax office you're claiming from and hope for the best. And hopefully they will come back with feedback saying you can't. We're not going to pay you back the VAT on this receipt because it was wine. We're not going to pay you back on this because it was a massage. But you don't want to do that. You want to do what's right and what's compliant from the start. So I think just to continue on the slides, I think here is really where we as VAT come into the picture. And in Sweden, we have a saying, I don't know how you say it in Finnish, a love child has many names. And I think this is what we're bringing to the table. That is quite complex, but we have a great system for doing this. And what we have done is we partnered and built an integration with Bezala where we as VAT IT do this. If we just continue to the next slide, I think this is very speaking. So if we just look at a Finnish company, if you just look at the neighboring countries, if you go in Sweden on business, there's 25% VAT on the hotel. That's fully reclaimable. That means every fourth night you get it refunded, more or less, if you would do the VAT reclaims for that. So there is a big chunk of money to get back if you are organized and you have a system to do it. So I think if we just go to the last slide, I think what we have done with Bezala is that we have integrated and built a technical solution where we are able to, once you engage with VAT as the partner, we do the whole process for the clients. So the first step is for us to sign a service agreement between VAT and you as the company. We have a beautiful model. We only charge if you get money back. So we do all the work, and once there is a refund, we take a percentage of that refund, which means that if you don't get anything back, it doesn't cost anything. If you have too little, it doesn't cost anything. And if, for example, 1 year you have nothing, but the next year you have a lot, the year you had nothing, we don't charge anything for. So once that is signed, we will prepare all the relevant documentation that is necessary, and we will make sure that data is transferred through Bezala so we can actually do the proper audit, and through our tools we'll be able to create claim packs for each and every country that you're claiming to. So more or less, you don't need to do anything. And we're not just saying that because we are nice people and we want you to, commit to our service, but it actually is, all you need to do is you need to sign the agreement between us and you and let the data be released from Bezala so our team can work through it. Then everything else is handled. And this is really the beautiful thing. And I think all these problems that I showed in the beginning of the slides of knowing, can you claim that wine bottle? Do you understand that receipt? That's something which will not have to be your headache, but that becomes our headache. And when you know exactly what's claimable or not, and in which countries and what costs, it becomes quite an easy task. And the idea here is it's an ongoing process where we'll have constant access to the data so that we'll constantly be doing claims for you. So hopefully everybody in this room is sitting on a little bit of money left on the table. That was just a short introduction to what we do. I think we will perhaps try to do some questions in the end. I also see that there is a poll, and interesting enough, it seems that the majority are not claiming back. So I think this is a great opportunity. We do understand that many businesses did not claim back in the last few years because of COVID. Naturally, there was less VAT paid outside of your home country just because we didn't travel because we couldn't travel. But now it's a great opportunity to start up that process again. And we often are surprised that we find more VAT that is claimable than what the client thinks. I think that's my short intro. Thank you.
Super interesting. I have a couple of questions right away. So how far back can you claim the VAT? Do you always have to do it for the last year? Can you claim back further? Does this depend on a country basis? Could you shed some light on that?
Yeah, fantastic question. So it depends. Most European countries, we can claim back 1 year at a time. And there our deadline is September, which means that this September in 2024 is our deadline to claim any VAT from 2023. That's from an EU country to an EU country. So generally speaking, we can go back 1 year at a time. We also claim for certain non-EU countries such as Norway, Switzerland, and they have another deadline, which is a little bit before September, but the same process, meaning the year before. There are a few countries, Iceland, for example, Holland, where you actually can claim back further years back in time. So don't get fooled if you feel like, oh, last year we didn't have so much, because it actually could be a possibility to go back in time. Australia, we can go back 4 years in time if you want us to help with the GST. South Korea, we can go back 5 years in time.
Interesting.
Is that a good answer?
Yes, very interesting. What about then? In 5 years back in time, that's quite a long time also for South Korea. But what about the amounts? Like, how much do you need to be spending for this to make sense, like in foreign countries?
Great. So of course there is a minimum in each tax office, which we can never submit smaller claims than the tax office will receive. But generally speaking, for this to be a commercial for both parties, we're looking at somewhere like a minimum of roughly 10,000 euros in VAT spent per year abroad. That can be from different countries, but that's generally the minimum we see where it becomes interesting to work together.
And once you submit these, how long does it take then to get paid, basically, from the local tax authorities?
Great. That also depends. And we're not going to throw any of the European tax office under the bus here, but some are faster than others. There is a maximum amount of time which a European tax office needs to respond to a claim and either pay it out or send a query. But roughly speaking, somewhere between 3 and 4 months for most claims to be refunded without a query. If there's a query, which means that the tax office comes back to us with a question, which we will then also answer. So that's something that you as a client need to handle. Then most tax offices, according to EU law, are granted another 4 months to review that case. So that's why it's also important to get started with claiming and do it at a constant rate.
Then there was a question in the comments also, which is brilliant. What about physical and or digital receipts? Do you need to have the physical receipts to be able to reclaim the VAT in certain countries?
Yes, so certain countries will require a receipt. I'm happy to go into more detail about that, but just to give a short webinar answer, certain countries require the original. And if that is required, we have a service where we help to actually get the original for the actual claim. Good news for those that have visited Sweden, we don't need originals anymore from the 1st of July, given that, and that's a great change. But if it is a country which requires an original, we have a process to make sure that we acquire the original for that claim.
Yep. Nice. Thank you so much, Simon. And there's a poll also. If you guys are interested in having a meeting with Simon and going through your specific VAT return possibilities, then just click like yes in the poll, and Simon can be in contact with you later. I'll now continue and go through some more tips and tricks within Bezala, but of course, if you guys have more questions to Simon during this, please post them in the questions. Okay, Eva had a very good point here about the quality of receipts. That basically the picture has to be good enough so that you can at least see the VAT number or the company name, and also like that the hotel bill has to include this information. And this is something that we have to really educate our users about. Here's an example from actually my own receipts. I was going through them yesterday, and so I have maybe 30 receipts per month that come like that are sort of subscriptions, and out of those I found 2 where there are issues with the receipt. One, there was an issue where the account is under my personal name, meaning that basically the VAT number, the company VAT number, is not there. So we cannot basically, well, in this case, we're not reclaiming the VAT. We're trying to get it VAT 0, and then we'll reverse charge the VAT, right? But in this case, still we had to pay the local VAT because of the account being done on a personal name. So then this obviously has to be fixed. On the right side, there's another example of this, and it's yeah, what's interesting is also about like the one on the right side. We use this service for multiple different coding related services, and it's interesting that this is an account within an account, and the main account is a business account, but this account then for some reason they've added tax to, which they shouldn't have. So this is probably just a mistake on the software vendor side, and then we have to contact them to ask them to sort of insert the correct details and not add tax in this case, in the sort of software case. So it's super important that we review the pictures that we get in Bezala and make sure that that the VAT like number and the company name are visible on the receipt, and that the tax is properly billed. So in this example that I'm showing here, actually the actual like profit and loss effect of finding these two receipts will be 3,000 euros per year for us when we get this fixed. So it's already like a really big amount of money. So it's for sure very important that we check all of the receipts. Yeah. Moving onward then. VAT codes then. So let's this is not regarding like VAT reclaim now. Now we're already talking about more like accounting specific stuff about VAT codes. But I wanted to show you directly within Bezala a couple of tips and tricks related to VAT codes. So bear with me just a moment. I hope that you're seeing Bezala on my screen. But VAT codes, of course, there are multiple ways to handle this. Some companies within Bezala have added their own VAT percentages, so that's one way to handle the VAT sort of so that you'll add a VAT percentage for foreign purchases. You'll add one for like EU purchases and one for non-EU purchases, and then you can, using that VAT percent, automate the VAT codes. So this VAT percent, it is editable. That's one way to go about this. The other way is to use VAT codes. So these VAT codes, they depend, like different software will have different terms for these VAT codes, but basically they're usually all about like is it a product or a software purchase within or outside of the EU, which will dictate how the VAT needs to be handled there. So what I recommend that you do in Bezala is that you go through your own receipts or your client's receipts to see which ones you end up having to manually update the VAT handling for, and then you create a couple of rules within Bezala to automate that once and for all, basically. So in our case, for example, what's very common is that we'll have like internet marketing costs that we have to do reverse charge on the VAT. They can be then outside of the EU or inside of the EU. So what we've done in this example is that we will have two different accounts which you can use, and then depending on which one you select, the VAT code will change here. So this VAT code automation that is account and VAT percent based can be edited through the account list. This is a feature that we're still working on. So if you want access to this feature, be in contact with us and we'll give it to you. But here I'll show you a preview of how it works. So basically, if we now have here this internet marketing expense category, we can add a VAT mapping to it. So for example, I can say that the default VAT for these purchases, which are non-domestic but within the EU, would be 24%, and in this case, they would be reverse charge. So I'll add a mapping like this, which means that all receipts added to this account will get a 24% default VAT, and when the 24% VAT is added with this account, then we'll add that reverse charge code for it. So once you save that, the automation will start working in the background. And you can do this for all kinds of different VAT requirements or handling requirements that you have. The most common ones being like software purchases within or outside of the EU, and then like internet marketing, basically. Those are the most common ones. So this VAT code mapping, it's a nice feature that I warmly recommend that you use if you have issues with the VAT handling here. It'll save you a lot of time. Then on to just a couple of tips and tricks that I'd like to show you still. As you know, and I hope everyone already knows this, but if you don't, then this is the perfect chance to get to know it. So representation is one example where the VAT deduction right depends on, in some countries, for example, in Sweden, it depends on how many participants are at that event. So behind the account, we've developed a way to enforce users to insert the participants' names. So there's a checkbox here that I highly recommend that you have checked behind the representation account. Then when I'll just give you a quick demo of this. So if a user then inserts a receipt with representation, there will be another question here where they have to insert the names of the participants. So if they don't insert, if they try to, for example, save this or submit it, Bezala will tell them that, hey, you have to fill in this form or this field here. So then we can fill it in here like that. So yeah. Those were a couple of short and sweet tips and tricks on the VAT handling in Bezala. And please, if you guys have any questions at all, don't be afraid to contact us. We will more than gladly help you to get started with this VAT handling within Bezala. Yeah, that was that for this webinar. And the next webinar that we're going to have will be on the 15th of March at 9 a.m. This webinar will be in Finnish, and there's a link below which you can use to already sign up for that webinar. So that's going to be a nice one. We'll confirm the topic next time when we or later on. Yeah, let's see.
Maybe, can I just add some
more questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Just because I do see that there is a lot of comments about the quality of the receipt, and welcome to my world. This is our problem. And just, I think there's two things that are important to mention. Number one is in the service that we offer, when it comes to VAT reclaim, we also reissue invoices or receipts, which means that if an employee has uploaded a hotel invoice, for example, and it doesn't have the company name, in many countries, that will not be a claimable expense because it's very unclear. Even though we know that the company paid for it, has to have the company name. In those situations, we will actually go back to the supplier and we'll make sure they issue it in the right company name so that it is claimable. But before that, I think it is an important exercise to inform employees what are the right formats. We can also help you guide you through how it should look and what information is necessary. But I think just so that no one feels that, oh, this is not interesting for us because all our receipts are such bad quality, don't worry, we can help you polish them, and we'll work together to improve that quality. And do please reach out to me also on Teams. I think if you just add my name or write to me directly here, we can set up a coffee chat next week or later this afternoon, whenever you want.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We had a very lively chat going on here, and I hope we were able to answer all questions in a sufficient manner. But yeah, thank you all for attending this webinar. Simon is your guy for VAT reclaim, so remember that, and keep in mind that they can help you all over basically the world. So in 10,000, that's the magic threshold when you'll see like really benefits coming in from the VAT reclaim. So that's a good threshold to know about. But anyways, like it's better to get started even if you have less than 10,000 than to like leave sort of money at the table on that side. So thank you all so much for this webinar, and see you next time. Bye bye.